Hey Emma,
Yes, Madeline.
what do you say when a famous historical queen of France asks you if you could please let her know where the cake is?
I don't know. What do you say?
Atelier Marie. Hello and welcome to Talk This.
It's dangerous to podcast alone.
You got a little bit of an accent because you're a commoner and you're in the bakery.
A British commoner in France.
Yeah,
Atelier.
I'll tell you. I don't know. She's got the finest pastry chefs from across the general European area, okay?
Sure, okay.
It's just the olden times. Everyone sort of said yay
Sure.
back then.
Yeah, I'm sure they did.
Look, I'm trying to do better than just like, here are the names of the games together, so...
Now it's with an accent.
Yeah.
You're really mixing it up.
A step up, really. Listeners, thanks for tuning into the show. I'm your punchy host, Madelyn.
I'm your cauldron-y host, Emma.
And this week on the show, we're talking about Atelier Marie, or Atelier
Atelier.
Marie, if you work in Marie Antoinette's pastry department. Sorry, I'm going to be giggling to myself about this one the whole episode. And we're also talking about River City Girls, too. So as we've said on the show several times, just girly things. And in fact, just mostly Japan-only girly things.
Yes.
Just Japanese girly things.
Yeah.
So let's start with potions. It's potions time. Alchemy
Let's do it.
time. So, Atelier Marie, the Alchemist of Salburg, is an RPG, potions RPG, alchemy RPG, from Gust, which is part of Koei Tecmo. Released on the PlayStation and the Sega Saturn in 1997. And because Emma loves to pick games that then become ungoogleable for me for this show, it's coming to the West for a remake. The first time this summer. It was never officially localized or released here. Atelier Marie is the first in the Atelier series, which no doubt we will talk about more. But they just announced this. It was announced in a Japanese Nintendo Direct like 2 weeks ago, and then
for their 25th anniversary of the series.
Quote unquote, we're a few months late, but that's okay.
I mean, whatever. As long as it's the year, it counts as the 25th anniversary.
Well, the 25th anniversary of 1997 is, in fact, 2022. But that's okay. Maybe it released in late 1997. I don't know. I didn't look up the month.
No, it was May.
Well, then they're just a little behind. That's okay. Plenty of games don't get any celebrations and people are pissed. So it's okay to do 25th anniversary in year 26. Don't sweat
They have, like, well, I guess the Sophie came out last year. Never mind. It is a yearly series, which does shock me every time I remember this.
I know, the Wikipedia page is like, there are 1 million of these.
Yeah.
Plus some handhelds. Anyway, they just announced this week that Atelier Marie, where it all began, is going to be released in a remake in July. So if you listen to this podcast and you're like, I want my Atelier stuff but with a little less thigh, then maybe this is for you.
There's a bunch of games on the PS4, so you can avoid the thigh if you want to.
Who would want to avoid the thigh? We'll explain this later. Anyway, in Atelier Marie, which again, has not been translated other than fan translations, has never been released in the West, so doing my best on synopses here, right? Would love for someone to come in here and be like, actually, this is 100% wrong. But Marie is a 19-year-old medieval alchemy student in Salburg. Surprise, surprise. But she's really bad. Or if she's not really bad, maybe she's really inattentive. She's a very bad student.
She's bad at school, basically.
So she is not going to graduate. She's going to be expelled. But her professor, in an unusual act of generosity, this is not usually what happens to students who are going to fail out of school. Her professor's like, here, have an alchemy lab for 5 years and do something cool.
Yeah, it's basically just like, can you self-direct your learning into being able to do something good? Is school just a bad environment for you? So really just a really forward-thinking teacher, to be honest,
Seriously.
for 1997.
Really some cutting-edge educational philosophy here.
They're like, maybe school, standardized school is not, in fact, for everybody. Wild.
Certainly not for an aspiring potion brewer. Synthesizer. Aspiring Moogle.
Yeah. Yeah, that's basically what they are. They're all aspiring Moogles.
It's a Moogle sim. I should probably tell that to Clickbait Boyfriend. See if that sells him.
I think that would sell him. I don't know. They don't look like Moogles, so I really think it's the design.
There's a lot more butt than we usually see with the Moogles. You're absolutely right.
So yeah, the first game, you'll see all of these elements in all of the Atelier games, but to varying degrees. So the first game, you have like a time limit, essentially, right? You have this 5 years to accomplish something. And you'll have missions during these 5 years that are also within a time limit, right? So can you fulfill these? Some of the games, if you don't, you'll get like a bad ending and have to reload a previous save. Some of them, it just like affects the ending that you get, right? So if you want to get like the best ending at the end, you need to make sure that you're making all of your time limits. And basically what it is you go out, you gather ingredients, you maybe do some fighting of monsters, and then you come back to your atelier and you do synthesis, right? You do your alchemy, basically, by putting ingredients in the pot and following recipes correctly.
Hopefully.
In order to make the items that you need for various missions or to help you in combat or whatever.
Basically, it's Cooking Mama.
Yeah. So you said Marie was an RPG, but I think the Atelier series sort of waffles back and forth between like really heavy RPG and more like simulation type stuff. And the earlier games are more about like your life sim than it is necessarily about the RPG stuff, but some of the later ones are more heavy in the RPG and less about the life sim. So they sort of go back and forth depending on trends, basically.
You are role-playing the life of an alchemist. How about that?
I'm not saying they're not an RPG. I'm not saying you're wrong. Just like in terms of like, there are heavier RPGs and there are lighter RPGs, right?
Absolutely.
In terms of game mechanics.
But as I saw discussed in some threads about this, there's definitely like a temptation to compare this game to something like a Stardew Valley, right? But I definitely saw some comments that were like, it's not really like that. In some ways, it's closer to Persona, but it's not really like that either. I think, like you said, it varies pretty significantly from game to game, how much those various... Wouldn't it be fun to make a little, like, alchemy of Atelier Marie? It's like, it's a dash of Stardew Valley, and it's a bit of Persona, and some Cooking Mama in there, and whatever, right? Like,
yeah.
But it definitely varies, because, again, there are 24 of these? 25? Yes. Something like that?
I think there's 24. I don't know if Ryza 3 will be the 25th or the 24th.
Right. So, as we've mentioned, though, Atelier Marie came out in 1997, and they only started being released in the West starting in, 2005. The first one was the Atelier Iris subseries. But even then, it has never been a popular series in the West for a very long time. It's reasonably popular in Japan, which makes sense because they have been making a game a year, plus handheld stuff, plus ports, plus whatever, since 1997. So you'd think it has to be selling at least a few copies.
Yeah.
But it was really only with Atelier Ryza, which I think the first one is a 2019 game, something like that, that it really broke out, at least on a moderate scale, outside of Japan.
Yeah, I still would not call it, it's not doing Persona numbers.
No, definitely not. It has not broken out.
Niche. Yes.
I think along the lines, we're going to talk about River City Girls and River City Girls 2. I think we have some interesting parallels in our games this week that I learned about in that sort of, both of these series. are sort of finally seeing, I won't quite say their moment in the sun, perhaps, but they're starting to attract some kind of a Western audience beyond like a very, very niche one previously. That's less true for the River City series than it is for the Atelier series, in terms of not having a following before, not in terms of the popularity of the most recent games. But still, it was an interesting parallel to me.
Yeah.
So these definitely do fall into the like the cozy game subgenre.
They're very. I did. So I had bought the first Ryza on sale, this winter because I thought I should try this series because I don't know. It's a very big series. Like, why not? It is very cozy.
You said that with disdain.
Well, it's just, I don't know. I'm going to give it more of a fair shake. I've played like an hour, right?
Yeah.
I don't really, like we've talked about it like our cozy game show. I don't really find games that are intentionally cozy to be very cozy most of the time.
Emma Core is, it's got to be dark and we can be cozy.
No, it just got to be exciting. There's got to be exciting things happening. And it's very slice of life-y. Like, Ryza starts out like she's on this island. She really wants to go on an adventure. So, like, her and her friends, like, steal a tiny boat and, like, go out to, like, another island and, like, go into a forest. And we're like, wow. We're such rebels. It's sort of cute, but in a, like, okay sort of way, you know? So we're just getting into, like, learning how to do alchemy now. Which I'm mostly confused by at this point, but hopefully once I do more recipes, it'll start making more sense.
There were a couple of interviews with Ryza 2 where they talked specifically about how they wanted to make the system a little more friendly to newcomers while also making it deeper. So, good luck, I guess.
Thanks. I'll look forward to it.
Do you feel like this is at all similar to Harvestella?
No.
I was just curious. In description only, it seemed that way to me, but I figured it wasn't.
Sorry, I've heard that the Dusk trilogy is a little bit more, has like an edge of tragedy to it, because the idea of that one is that like the world is dying in the background. So those ones might be more like Harvestella, but this one is very like, very slice of life anime at this point.
It was fascinating to me in some of the comments in the articles about Atelier Ryza that I was reading. Some of these people are like, wow, they're kind of anime-y. Boo, I don't like that. I wish they wouldn't do that. It's like, what do you think you're signing up for, buddy? Like, I don't know. Like, I get that there aren't too many, like, alchemy-focused games, and so if that's, like, what you're into, you're a little starved for content. But, like, these games have always been kind of anime-y. That's what they are.
That reminds me of, like, the Fire Emblem is turning anime complaint a little bit. It's like, no, they're just evolving to modern anime.
Yeah.
But what did actually, thinking of, like, the art, what was, like, this seems cool about looking at Ryza is I got it when they announced 3, and I was looking at the artwork of each of them. And sort of the unique thing, I think, about the Atelier series is they're sort of broken down. They usually do, like, trilogies, and then they might revisit a world later down the line. Like, they did the Arland ones, like, way later, because those characters were always, like, super popular, and the creators were like, I guess people want more of this, you know? So they sometimes return to older series, but usually they'll do, like, chunks that are, like, trilogies. And they always pass time. Right? So the character you play as one will get older, and maybe you'll be playing as a different character. In Ryza's case, you're always playing Ryza, but her and her friends are getting older, so you'll, like, see their designs evolve, and so I find it really charming that, like, in 1, they really look like super awkward teens. Like, they made them just, like, look like total dweebs, all of them. And then you look later, it's like, oh, they grew up into themselves, right? And it's sort of charming to be able to see that development just through, like, the covers of the games.
That is pretty cool. Ryza is notable for being... Several articles said Atelier Ryza 2 is the first time that a protagonist carries over. So take that as you will.
With Marie, at least, I know that you play as a different character, and Marie comes back and is in the story, but you're not playing as her.
Hope Marie's doing well. I have one other not-so-cozy anecdote about Atelier Marie. So they released Atelier Marie like 4 times, basically, like, you know, before being able to push patches to various systems, right? So it came out for PlayStation, it came out for Sega Saturn, and then they did a slightly updated version that came out to Dreamcast, and then I think eventually to PlayStation 2.
Yeah, I think they did a double pack with Marie and Ellie for the PlayStation 2.
That's what it was. So I think it was it was the bundled Dreamcast re-release that came with a computer virus.
Oh, wow.
So it was totally fine in the Dreamcast. You could put it in the Dreamcast, but I think on the disc, from what I could tell reading about this, there was some kind of like screensaver. So you could like put the disc into your computer and download an Atelier Marie screensaver to use. Remember screensavers, by the way?
No.
What happened to those?
I don't know.
Now my TV has one, but my computer doesn't, you know? Anyway. Screensavers, side quest coming up next week. But you could put it into your computer to download a screensaver. But the screensaver had a really, really bad computer virus.
Oh, man.
So it would like pretty much destroy your Windows operating system. Like it would destroy it and then try to rewrite over all your data with garbage. So they had to recall it.
Oops.
Probably happened because the developer somehow had, like, whoever was doing it somehow had the virus on their computer. Like, probably wasn't just someone being like, ha ha ha, I'm gonna give everyone a computer virus. But yeah, pretty bad. Pretty embarrassing. Probably not a lot of QA going on.
Well, they are yearly games.
Yeah.
Something I found, I read one interview with the brand manager Junzo Hosoi and series creator Shinichi Yoshike. Sorry, I had trouble with that for some reason. For like the 20th anniversary, so like 5 years ago. I did find it really interesting. They talk about like, you know, the shifts in tones or what each game is sort of focused on really is dependent on like what we're into that year. And so I thought that was so like they're talking about like, oh, like the Dusk one, the Dusk series, you know, like we wanted it to be RPG like because the previous one was really heavy RPG, so we thought about like, okay, so people liked the RPG-ness, like could we make like a more serious story that would fit the RPG-ness? And also they were really into Madoka.
Yikes. Alright, I'll pass on those ones.
Or in Fallout New Vegas, they said, which was really funny. Or they made one more open world or like pseudo open world because they were seeing a lot of overseas games in that genre, so they thought, you know, why not? But the initial inspiration he was talking about was one, apparently he learned about alchemy in his university studies. Not clear whether he just learned about it or was like doing alchemy.
Sure.
So, you know, whatever. But he thought that was cool and was like, oh, this seems interesting for a system. And also the Salburg ones are based on, like, Anne of Green Gables, especially. So saying, like, Anne and Diana are very much reflected in Marie and Shia's friendship, which Shia is one of the characters she gets sick about during the game, and you have to try to cure her within a certain time limit. That's one of your timed missions, for instance.
Yeah. I'm still stuck on this guy learning alchemy.
I think it was just about alchemy, but it was the phrasing could have been worked on by the translator, I think.
It's fascinating, though. I mean, they've fallen a little off of the yearly release schedule in the past couple of years, but not that much. I mean, there's 2 of them coming out in, like, within like 4 months of each other.
Yeah.
In
I
the
think
next year.
if any like yearly series, if you're like, then then COVID happened.
Yeah.
Maybe that messed up your schedule a little bit.
But it's fascinating because obviously that's very much a dying breed. And usually our pattern on the show is to talk about the old game that's, oh yeah, it was a yearly series until 2006. And then there wasn't another one until 2014. And now they come out every 5 years.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that, obviously they aren't reinventing the wheel here very much exactly with every game. But it's interesting that they have managed to stick pretty much to that schedule, pandemic notwithstanding.
Oh yeah, these are super not like AAA looking titles is something to bear in mind when going into them. Like, they remind me a little bit of the Trails of games in that sense of they release like a ton of those. And like they're always like just like a generation behind on graphics, right? Or more. Which like whatever. I mean that's fine if that's not your priority, but you do have to go into that being like this is gonna look a little bit ugly.
Just go in knowing if you're playing Atelier Ryza that all of the graphical effort went into her thighs. All of it.
I guess.
I mean, that is, I was reading some things about like, okay, why did Atelier Ryza, again, I will use the word breakout here with heavy air quotes around it because obviously it's not like broken out, but why did it suddenly attract a Western audience? And they were like, some of it was the memes about her thighs.
I mean, whatever gets your name out on social media, that's true.
That's true.
But
also, and I found this sort of more compelling, is that it came out sort of right around this time. I feel like we've seen, even like just in the past 5-ish years or so, this real explosion of JRPGs, but also just Japanese games more generally being released on PC.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize that Steam is really like a last decade thing in Japan. That it didn't launch over there until more like the early 2010s. So we're seeing a lot of Japanese publishers sort of finally porting their games or putting anything into the PC market, and then being very surprised when people with PCs buy their games. Now look, I understand why the Atelier series might feel a little reticent about putting their games on PC, because I would feel pretty embarrassed about giving a bunch of people a computer virus in the early 2000s. So I get it. You need about 20 years to get over that. Sure. Yeah. No problem. Yeah. But basically that part of the reason that this game broke out a little bit is that it reached this new audience that was still pretty hungry for any JRPG content they could play at all. And so it kind of scratched that itch, which I thought was interesting. It may also come to Game Pass. May come to Xbox, they say, which I think is funny.
Well, shall we move on?
Let's do it. Just girly things. Girly things. River City Girls 2.
Yeah, so River City Girls is the latest spin-off installment in the wide-ranging, long-releasing Kunio-kun franchise.
Yeah.
Usually localized as River City.
If the Atelier series pretty much makes the same game over and over, with like some light twists and like moving the RPG dial up and down, right? Yeah. The River City series, the Kunio-kun series, has sure thrown a lot of stuff at the wall.
Yes.
A lot of sports games in there.
A lot of sports games, and brawlers, basically.
Yeah. So the original River City Girls, the original spinoff came out in 2019, and then River City Girls 2 came out this past December after some delays, from Way Forward Studios, published by Arc System Works.
Yeah.
It's originally a...
Technos Japan.
Yes, exactly. I was going to say Tecmo, but I was like, Tecmo is wrong. We just talked about the Koei Tecmo game. Technos Japan series, but then ArcSys bought Technos like 5 or 6 years ago.
Did they buy Technos or just their stuff?
Oh, I don't know. That I don't know. They bought some portion of the company, whether that was just their bones or not. I'm not 100%
They
sure.
definitely bought Kunio-kun.
They sure did buy Kunio. He has been purchased.
He has been purchased, yeah.
So River City Girls, both games, are about the River City girls, specifically Misako and Kyoko, who are the girlfriends, at least way back in the 90s. In reading about this, they're not like the long-running girlfriends of these boys, but they are the girlfriends of Kunio and Riki, who are sort of the main protags often, or the heavily recurring character in Riki, I suppose.
He's like his rival turned friend, basically. Kunio's.
Yeah. So they're girlfriends. And in River City Girls 1, you play as them because the boys have gotten kidnapped. Maybe? I don't know.
Yes.
My boyfriend and I have been playing River City Girls, the original. I did decide to go with the original. I figured I'd save myself the $10 in case I liked it, and I then wanted to go on to 2. And we're enjoying it. We are enjoying it. I'll talk more about that in a little bit, but we're enjoying it. But ostensibly the boys have been kidnapped. I don't know. We're running all over town. Feel like we're just going to find them at home playing games in the end.
That would be a good twist. I think that
Like,
would be
they
good.
probably texted us being like, we've been kidnapped. Oh no. They could like stay at home and play Atelier Marie or whatever.
Yeah, that's probably what they're doing.
They're like embarrassed. They're like, we have to play our girly potion game and our girlfriends cannot now. So you're running around town, beating people up, looking for them in the first game, and in the second game, you aren't looking for them anymore, but you're still running around town, beating people up. Yaks are involved.
Yeah.
But River City's just a punchy town, as they say in the first game. They're just like, we just beat each other up all the time here. It's just what we do.
Yeah, so Misako and Kyoko, from one of the interviews I read with Way Forward, were in Kunio Tachi no Banka, which was a Japanese exclusive, and were playable in this one.
I have to read the English translation of this full title, because it took me a while to find it. Like, I had to like look in the Wikipedia notes. It's full title, Shin Neketsu Koha, Kunio Tachi no Banka, which means the new hot-blooded tough guy, the eulogy of Kunio and Co.
Good.
Then
That's good
apparently,
name.
like the hot-blooded tough guy stuff kind of comes from like the name of their school. The name of their school is like hot-blooded. Maybe. I don't know.
Good.
It's a little weird. But I thought it was funny. I really liked hot-blooded tough guy. It's like, yes, good series title.
So apparently they were struck by having Misako and Kyoko be playable, and so they pitched it to Arc System Works that they would make a new one featuring these two characters and moving Kunio and Riki to secondary roles. Although they are back and playable in the second game.
They're playable in the first game too once you beat the game. It's like a bonus.
Okay. I think, they're not kidnapped. They're not actively kidnapped and or playing the Atelier series in the basement.
I wouldn't be
game.
surprised. I was seeing some stuff about how like they patched the ending, right? There was some ending to the original one that people didn't like, and they changed it. I haven't read the details of this, but it probably was that it was really confusing that these boys were just at home playing Atelier Marie.
Yeah,
the whole time.
people were like, weird. I don't like this.
People were like, this game never even released in the West. Like, what is this? I don't get it. They were making potions the whole time.
It's nonsense.
Anyway, River City Girls has kind of taken off enough that they actually re-released that 1994 game, like as a remaster with some slightly new River City Girls content, because they're very side characters in that game. As River City Girls 0, that came out pretty recently too, last February. But that one is very old school. Like, that is definitely a remaster for 1994 game.
Yeah, my impression from reading a review of that is like they added new art and like presentation stuff, but really did nothing to the gameplay. So it's like super old school brawler stuff.
It's really funny to look at their 90s era anime art having played the game now. It's like, oh, that is them, but like, man, we really put the like Yu Yu Hakusho filter on these guys here.
Yeah.
So like we said, these games, the River City Girls games, are beat 'em up brawlers, and they've got local co-op, and River City Girls 2 has online co-op too. But local co-op, local.
Yes,
co-op.
we do love that.
Been a long time since the Talk This show, I feel like, has had a local co-op representation. That's probably not true. It's probably been recent, but it always feels like a long time. There's not enough of these games.
They're not enough, really. Yeah.
Playing this kind of game feels really nostalgic for me, too. It's like very, you know, obviously we've played a lot of like Scott Pilgrim even recently with our younger siblings, but I think of like even like it's reminiscent in some ways of like the X-Men series. It's not really like that one is more RPG than this, but it's like just the like idea of like I'm button mashing with someone else on the couch. It's like, oh man, like we did that. We had the Ninja Turtles. Even Castle Crashers kind of feels like this a little bit. Like these are not actually really very similar games, but it still kind of scratched that itch for me and like like this game might get kind of like more boring if I was playing it by myself, but if I have a person here playing it with me, it's like, yeah, like let's do one more objective. Let's play a little bit longer. Absolutely. So my boyfriend and I are not great at this game, by the way. We're okay. I saw someone online be like, it took me 20 tries to beat this boss. And I was like, it only took me 2 tries. So suck on that. But we have a hard time reviving each other. It's very difficult to revive each other in this first game. I was heartened to see them mention in an interview about River City Girls 2 that they've made reviving the other characters on screen easier. Because we do a lot of like, oh my god, you have to stomp, don't do the other attack, you have to stomp on me. And by which I mean I do a lot of that toward my boyfriend. It's Overcooked all over again.
Yeah.
He's doing his best. Not because I die a lot, sorry to be clear, not because I die more than he does, because I'm better at stomping than he is. I just wanted to set the record straight there.
Of course. Yeah.
So basically you press a bunch of buttons. The controls are quite, to me, it reads a lot as playing a classic Yakuza Like a Dragon game. Yakuza and Like a Dragon game, because you press square, triangle.
There is Yakuza in this, I believe. So
there sure are. We're about to storm their tower. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But it's really, objectively, even though this hurts my soul to say, because we all know how I feel about Super Smash, but it's like, I mean, more accurately, it's very like old school arcade style controls, but also it's very much like Super Smash controls, where you have different attacks and holding different directions while you do those attacks gives you different attacks that you can unlock. But it did take me, like, the first hour of playing the game, I had to retrain myself which button is the block button. Not that we really ever successfully block. That's not something we believe in this household. But it took me a while to retrain myself that the block is R1, not L1, which I'm pretty sure is what it is in Yakuza, because I just sort of fell back into those habits.
It's not very it's not a game that's very punishing for, even if you find it hard, it doesn't really punish you for dying very much. I read a little bit about this, of just that the developers don't really think that, like, harsh punishments for failure really feels good to play. So they always say you never lose more than a room's worth of progress, and when you die, you just lose, like, half your money, essentially.
You say that like it's not painful.
The money apparently is just to prevent exploits, like killing yourself on purpose to get your stamina back, apparently. So there is a little bit of punishment so that people won't just do it over and over again for, like, benefit to them.
We do still sometimes kill ourselves on purpose. Like, I'll be like, oh, I only have 1 bar of health, and, like, it's way easier. The way you revive someone is, like, by, at least in the first game, is by stomping on them. They have, like, a little angel flying up, and you just stomp the angel back down by stomping on them. And that's a lot easier when there's, like, 1 enemy on screen than when you're entering a new room and there's a bunch of enemies. So there definitely has been some, like, oh, I'm gonna die now, and you're gonna revive me so I come back at my, like, half health.
But at least there's, like, you know, like a cost-benefit analysis to that, you know.
Well, but then you don't die. You don't die unless your angel gets all the way up.
Oh, I see.
So I save everything. But you don't know how bad it feels to beat a boss and walk away with a bunch of money and then promptly die in the next room and lose all of it. Lose half of it. Feels bad, Emma. Feels bad. They say not punishing. I feel punished.
Well, it doesn't set you all the way back to, like, the beginning of a level.
No, you're right. It's not that punishing. I'm just competitive and I want my money. That's all.
The other thing I saw that I thought was interesting was they spent a lot of time trying to make sure that River City felt like an actual city. Like, a lot of times in brawlers, you'll get, like, repeating backgrounds, or what they said were tile sets, essentially. So, like, you make the building blocks and then you, like, use those blocks to, like, create the background, right? And instead they worked on creating unique locations for each area of the city that you're in.
The game does look really good. It's pretty. It's, like, fun, kind of pixely vibe. But then you also get these occasional story kind of manga comic book panel type presentation. Yeah, which is fun, and the voice acting is fun and good. You know, sassy, good fun.
Yeah,
there's a good theme song at the beginning.
Yeah,
a dope song, as they call it in the theme song, actually, which I agree it is dope. There's some bopping tunes in this, for sure. Both games, very boppy.
I believe most of them are done by Megan McDuffie.
Who was the composer of the 1994 game, too, which I thought was wild.
That is wild.
Like, what a different world to be composing video game music in. Yeah. Especially, like, knowing what these songs sound like in these, you know, 2019 and 2022 games. It's like, wow, you brought the same person back, and she cannot be doing at all the same thing she was doing in 1994. Like, that's so funny to me.
Yeah.
For long-running fans of the Kunio-kun series, which, by the way, as I was mentioning when we were talking about the Atelier series, is much more popular in Japan than it is here. There have definitely been some games in this, like, wide-ranging, like, series within series Kunio-kun juggernaut that have been brought over and localized, and often, like, aggressively localized. Right?
Yes.
Like, Kunio's name is Alex.
Yeah.
Or, like, there was a weird one, too. Cooney or something. Like, it had something before that, too. It was, like, Crazy Cooney or something. Like, I don't know. I read it, I was like, I see how you're trying to capture Kunio-kun here, but, like, this is weird.
Yeah.
But certainly not all of them. And, like, Kunio was the mascot for Technos. Like, he's the dude. And they definitely have not caught on here the way they have in Japan. There's tons of them that are Japan-only releases.
Yeah.
So River City Girls and River City Girls 2 have definitely been, again, like, sort of a... Once again, I don't want to oversell this, right? But sort of breakout hits for the series. Which I think is why they're leaning into it so hard.
Well, I think it's a smart update for trying to make it appealing here.
Yeah.
I guess I mean, I don't know. Like, having the girls is more eye-catching, I guess.
Well, it definitely does more to differentiate it
standpoint.
from, like, a Streets of Rage type of thing, for sure.
I mean, I just think, like, from my Twitter timeline, people really love, like, tiny girls with, like, bats, for instance. So, like, that's just what the people are into these days.
It's just the cultural zeitgeist.
Yeah. Small girls with hammers, axes, that like little Pokemon, the Tinkaton.
I don't know which one that is, but I believe you. I believe you.
The pink one with the big hammer.
Right? Yeah, of course. They aren't even the like biggest glow up in the game, apparently. Like Misako and Kyoko were like tough girl gang girls, even in the 90s, like beating people up. But there's a lot of, if you're a long-term Kunio-kun series fan, which more power to you, I guess, or if you're just a long-time fan of like technos, there's a lot of cameos from characters from past games that turn up throughout River City. You don't need to know who these people are to enjoy the game. I certainly don't know who they are, but they're there. In 2, so in 1, you pretty much just play as Misako and Kyoko. But in 2, you have 6 different characters to choose from. You play as Misako and Kyoko. You can play as the boys, Kunio and Riki, if you want to. And then there's also 2 more girls who've gotten added in from like throughout the like either the Kunio-kun series or like this developer's work more broadly, basically. And most notably, I think Marion, who's from the Double Dragon series, which again, made by the same company, but like actually doesn't really cross over with Kunio-kun except here. In 1, she's just a shopkeeper, but she's a shopkeeper. So Marion is sort of known that a lot in the Double Dragon series, she gets like punched in the stomach and then carried off with a big lack of dignity and being kidnapped, right? So it's pretty funny that the boys have been kidnapped, knowing that, right?
Yeah.
But now she's got abs of steel. She's never gonna get punched in the stomach again. She's got abs of steel, looking tough, running a shop, and then she's playable characters who can beat them all up in 2.
Okay, so I was reading a little bit about, like, the last system, and you've been playing River City Girls, maybe you understand what it is. What is the recruit system that's talking about?
Yeah. So I think it's a little different in 2 than 1. But in 1, the way it works is sometimes when you're fighting, like there's, various enemies on the screen, and sometimes the last enemy will get scared because they're last and they know they're about to get a can of a whoop opened on them.
Right.
And they'll be like, no, please recruit me. And so you can hit R1 and they become like sort of like a summon, basically. And so then at any point in battle, you can hit L1 and send in that recruit until they run out of hearts, basically, to do some fighting. In 2, that system, I think, gets a little bit expanded, where I think you could still do it sort of that way, maybe, but also you can go back to, like, your base and then, like, hire recruits to help you out.
I see.
So I think it's not unlike, this is not totally right, but it's, like, sort of like a summon of any game where you have to, like, pay to have a summon, or where there's a cost of having a summon. It's kind of like that.
Right. To go off the Yakuza one, it's like the, what are they called? That you phone
mates.
In. What?
Pound
mates. Yes.
Which would probably be a pretty good name for them in this series, too, to be perfectly honest. But the story of these is pretty light, right? Like, there's a story, there's some, like, fun, like, snippy little dialogue that is fine. And I really enjoy the little, like, tableaus of them when you go into a shop. There's, like, the silly shopkeeper and Misako and Kyoko, like, making faces or posing or whatever. I think those are really funny. But we're really enjoying it overall. I mean, again, just as, like, something light, we're kind of, like, in between games here a little bit right now at Talk This NYC HQ. I mean, Clickbait Boyfriend is still slogging through Elden Ring, and I think needs, like, a little break from that. And I'm still working up the courage to go back to the traders in Triangle Strategy.
Right.
So it's been welcome. And from everything that I've seen, they're like, not that much has changed from 1 to 2. There's, like, more side quests, and it's a bigger world. But they're, like, very similar in kind.
Yeah, I think they're both pretty short games, too.
Oh, we're, like, almost done with 1.
Yeah.
And we started it yesterday.
I think most brawlers are pretty short, so.
Do you think that's just because people get bored? Like, they know people are going to get bored?
Maybe. like, inherently, I'm like, I don't feel like this is a system that could sustain, like, a 30-hour experience, you know?
I definitely agree with that. There is not enough depth to this.
Like, even, like, any side-scrolling thing, I feel like.
Yeah. Anyway, to close, I feel really betrayed that the nasty girls that we run into every once in a while in River City Girls 1 are their actual girlfriends. They're, like, long-running girlfriends.
That's so funny.
Or, like, at least they're long-run, like, they're, like, long-running love interests, sort of, like, kind of linked to them. Especially, like, Ricky definitely has another girlfriend. So, yikes.
Do you want to know how the ending changed in the update? Or would you rather experience the ending for yourself?
Do you think that the podcast audience wants to know?
Well,
tell me the original ending. I don't want to know what they changed it to. How about that?
Well, okay, I'll just tell you that the fundamental difference between the two is whether you are actually dating them or not.
Whoa!
Yeah.
Yikes! Yikes-a-rooney! Oh no!
Without getting into specifics, that's what changed.
There are a lot of people being like, I'm dating them. Like, you're not dating them. There was a little boy who was like, my boyfriend Ricky. And I was like, what? What's happening? Okay, great. Wow, can't wait for that. Look forward to that. Neat. Neat. Wow, what if they change
once
it
you
so
get to
they're
it, you
not
can look up
dating?
the
What if the
original
change
one,
was
I
like,
guess.
actually they aren't together? That'd be hilarious. It'd be hilarious after the fact they were like, just kidding. Wow. Yeah, I understand now some of the commentary around this, saying like the ending of this really relied on you knowing a little bit more about the mythology of this series than like literally anyone does who's playing this game.
I guess so, yeah.
Interesting. Fascinating stuff. Okay, on that note, it's mashup time.
It's mashup time.
Has to be like very much Japan only. Or like something that comes from Japan only stock and is only now starting to appeal to the West. Has to be about girls.
Right now
Gotta
I'm
be girls.
thinking like rival alchemists.
You throw potions at each other.
Yeah.
Which way are we going to go with gameplay? Right? Because I feel like there's two very different directions here with the gameplay.
There is technically combat in both of them, so does feel like there has to be some combat in there.
Is it like you go out and you do short beat 'em up segments to gather ingredients?
Yeah, we
like
could
that-
just shift from turn-based to more beat 'em up.
I feel like that could, we were just talking about how the beat 'em up gets a little stale. So as long as you keep it like short and not necessarily super central, I feel like we could do that, maybe.
I really like the idea of like the alchemists, but like there's like gangs.
Where is this set? Like, is it medieval? Is it more of like a steampunk vibe? Is it just modern and they're truly brewing drugs? Like, what do you think?
Well, the Atelier series does rises in sort of like fake, not real, based on anything land is what I would say, versus like Marie that is definitely like more medieval inspired, I feel
Right.
like. So they sort of move around from like generic fantasy to like more specific fantasy.
Yeah.
And of course, River City Girls is just in a city, urban space.
River City.
The River City, yeah.
That's interesting. You sure did summarize for me where the two games are set.
Thank
Thank you for that.
Out loud. I'm feeling like a city, but like not as like violent as the city that River City is.
Right. Again, in River City, they really do comment. They're like, man, it's weird that everyone in our town just like punches everyone all the time.
Yeah.
Okay, but a city when?
I don't know.
You continue to dodge my fundamental question here.
I feel like city is already, like a strong starting point.
Right, but like New York or like Marie Antoinette's Paris?
Like neither. More like a town, maybe.
I think it's got to feel a little bit urban for the rival gangs to feel right. Like it could be like
right. Not New York is what I meant.
No, you're right. Like I think it's got to be somewhere sort of like amorphously in the past. Although I don't know, do I want them to have cell phones? Like I don't know. It's tough.
But anyway, I think there should just be two like sects. Like there's like there's like one that's more established, and then like the new ones come in, and there's like competition between the two.
And then when an important potion maker is kidnapped from each, like the head potion maker from each guild mysteriously disappears.
Sure.
And at first you think it's the other guild that did it, but it wasn't. It was like a mysterious like third guild. And you have to band together to make the ultimate potion to pour on their headquarters and shrink them into bugs or whatever.
I don't think they do that in the Atelier series.
Well, they would if they were the River City Girls. So.
That's true. You're right. But I think there would be more bug transmogrification potion.
You're absolutely... I think there would be sillier potions in this game for sure.
Yeah.
Alright, I like this. I like rival alchemy gangs. Look, as long as you don't make it too anime, there's clearly a starved market out there for these alchemy games. So just like... It's gotta be anime because both of these games are really anime, so I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But they'll still eat it up. They'll just complain in the comment section.
I feel like the anime that they're actually complaining about is like the cutesy-ness. Not like just anime inspiration. So
I don't know. I saw some people in the River City Girls comments being like, why are these series about girls now? Like to the degree that I thought it might have been parody, but I wasn't sure it was in multiple comments.
Too bad. It's just girly things.
Just girly things. That'll be what it's
like
called.
Like turning your enemies into bugs. Just girly things.
What is girlier than that? Well, on that very girly note, this has been another episode of Talk This.
It's dangerous to podcast alone.
If you enjoyed the show, if you have anything that you want to say about how girly it is to turn someone into a bug, fellas, is it girly if I turn some...
Our mashup would have to have local co-op, though.
You're right. Or would it be local co-op, or would it be like, could you play it also as like you're working against each other? Probably not. It's probably too story-based of a game to do that.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I think it would be in like the newbie group. There would be like two of you, though.
Yeah. I like that.
Work together as like partners. There are partners in the Atelier series before, but usually you pick one or the other to play as, essentially.
Can specialize in different potions and stuff. That'd be cool. What kind of potions would you brew if you were studying Alchemist at your college? What would be your signature beat-em-up moves if you lived in River City? Do you think the games are too girly these days? Or too anime?
Absolutely.
Games too girly anime these days? Let us know on social media. Maybe not that last one. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at Talk This Podcast. You can also visit our website, www.talkthispodcast.com, where you can read all about the show, check out the games in the hat, where Emma's about to pull our next two games from, and read our blog featuring long-running series Clickbait Boyfriend and Split Screen. But finally, and perhaps most importantly, if you enjoyed the show, or if you sort of enjoyed the show, or you just want more just girly things, you should subscribe. We're on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify, Pandora Podcasts, online and on the app, Overcast, Pocket Cast, wherever you can find podcasts, wherever you found the podcast today, subscribe to Talk This. Next week is my side quest. What kind of seasonal joke can I make this time? I missed Mardi Gras already, games for Mardi Gras, games about marching, maybe?
Sure. Yeah, why not?
Something like that. No, I'll try to pick something not seasonal. I'll pick something so unseasonal You won't even believe it.
I'm ready.
It's going to be
Whatever it is.
4th of July games. No, we already did that. We already did that with our, like, American military propaganda show. Go look at that one. But something interesting. You know me, something spicy. But Emma, what are we talking about in 2 weeks?
In 2 weeks, our old game is going to be Front Mission.
Mm-hmm. Just girly things.
Just girly things. And our new game is going to be Soul Hackers 2.
So another girly episode.
Yeah.
All episodes are girly episodes here at Talk This.
It's true.
Well, that's it for the show. Thanks for listening. Emma, do you have a sign off?
This week, I hope that you are, in fact, actually dating your boyfriend.
Or you can get a patch to fix it.